Welcome back to the Summer of Summer. What's one thing a celebrity should never say? What if I was the star of my own cartoon show? Yep, how so many times we go back to this well. From the Osmonds to the Harlem Globetrotters to Michael Jordan to fricking MC Hammer, the animation world has been littered with cartoons starring music, movie, and sports stars, pretty much all of which have become absolute fodder for every cynic with a camera and an internet connection to mock today. But I guess when you look at how many of those cartoons turned the stars into superheroes, someone wanting a cartoon about running his own summer camp must be tame by comparison, huh? John Candy was another comedic great that we lost way too soon. I think his death in 1994 was the first that really took me by shock. The man simply had a charm about him that resonated in a number of beloved and perhaps now underappreciated comic films in the 1980s. And that success led to him, yes, being the subject of his own animated series created by Joel Andrick, Ellen Levy, and Phil Harnage. Camp Candy was yet another co-production of Deke and Saban, the latter of which was still clearly coming into its own as a production company before coming up with Power Rangers put them on the map. Well, they made one of the only good cartoon adaptations of a live-action show, so maybe they could make a celebrity cartoon work, right? That answer's gonna hurt, isn't it?
Bee bites, the bee bites, the bark of the tree bites, the quietness of darkness, the stories told by firelight, the long nights, the food fights, a summer made of memories at Camp Candy.
This is what I get for buying so many crazy pills I can't afford Advil. So the theme of the show is pretty much what it says on the tin. John Candy plays himself as the owner and head counselor of his own summer camp on the shores of Lake Cacciatore within the Gimme Gucci Forest. Each episode usually started with John giving his current batch of campers some type of class instruction where he ultimately makes a fool of himself. This acts as a cheap segue into him telling a story involving what must have been his craziest batch of campers ever.
The morning flag raising is one of the most important ceremonies of summer camp. You're supposed to be saluting, not giggling.
Salute your underwear? You've got to be kidding.
I will say that the first episode is a decent enough launch that helps establish this cavalcade of campers under Candy's care. We have Alex, a hyperactive tomboy. Rick is a troublemaking prankster. Vanessa is the high-maintenance spoiled girl. Robin is an obsessive animal lover. Iggy is a scaredy cat and a hypochondriac. And finally, there's Iggy's little brother, Binky. He's a little kid. That's pretty much his character.
How do you expect me to style my hair with you kicking up all that wind? You're complaining? Have you any idea what that hairspray is doing to the ozone layer? Look, I didn't ask to come to this totally tacky summer camp, and I certainly didn't ask to share a cabin with a female commando. Female commando, am I? Oh! Hey! Will you please keep it down? You're upsetting my animals.
The only other full-time employee the camp seems to have, at least for the first season, is Hello Nurse's older sister, Nurse Molly, whose #1 trait is that she has the hots for John. Yeah, wish fulfillment much? To the point where one episode even had her craft a love potion to use on him. Because this was back before we began to realize that drugging and mind-controlling people into having feelings for another person was a really, really creepy thing to do.
Admit it, John. You fell off that flagpole just so you could be close to me, didn't you?
No, I didn't, Nurse Molly, honest. I didn't.
You can just call me Molly.
Yo, ooh, it It's getting kind of late.
But clearly we have to have a villain for a cartoon like this, right? In our case, we get a reject from the Captain Planet cartoon in Rex DeForest III. See what I mean? This show has too many stupid names for me to use the Buford Tannen clip. DeForest is this big, corrupt real estate developer who owns the Gimme Gucci property, but gave John the right to build his camp there some time ago, and now regrets it because the camp stands in his way of leveling the whole landscape to build a whole condo village or something. So now he and his brainless lackey Chester are constantly trying to find ways to ruin the camp and force John to give it up.
It's a bunch of bulldozers!
That awful Rex DeForest, the awful bird.
It's the haunted spirits at Gimme Gucci Woods. I'm out of here.
And this is why I spend so much money on crazy pills. Though there are times when John seems to be helping them along.
Things quickly got worse. The flames grew and rapidly spread to the rest of the kitchen. The kids tried to help put it out.
Okay, this episode is definitely worth talking about since it has been brought up by, let's just say, another reviewer who's a tad more popular than me. In this episode, John's bungling burns down the camp kitchen, and Rex takes advantage by calling the fire department on him, who threatened to shut the camp down if Candy doesn't get the kitchen fixed. Said other reviewer called hypocrisy on this episode by it making Rex the bad guy for calling the fire department. But here's the thing. Rex doesn't care about the safety of the camp or the surrounding area. In fact, had the fire spread to the woods, he might have done all he could to prevent the firemen from coming because he wants to level the woods anyway. And as for the fire chief being portrayed as a jerk, well, at the end of the episode, once John and the campers rebuild the kitchen, the fire chief is much nicer, satisfied with them having fixed the problem, and even turns the tables on Rex by threatening to condemn his property for several safety violations. So yeah, it ends showing the fire chief as just doing his job and reveals Rex to be a hypocrite. A similar case came in the episode The Cacciatore Creature, where Rick makes a fake sea monster in order to put an interesting story in the camp paper, and when Rex reads about it, he calls up this Geraldo XP in order to expose the fraud. Again, Rex doesn't care about ethics in journalism or whatever. He's only looking for loopholes to back out of a deal he agreed to in the first place. The guy probably has Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe on speed dial. This is why I would say these episodes actually have a bit more depth than they let on. The villain is someone who on the surface looks like he's doing the right thing, but only because he has something to gain personally from his actions and not out of altruism. Especially because he has his own history of shady dealings himself. There were other episodes that made less sense than those. Like the one where Rex and Chester discover the Fountain of Youth, and it turns Chester back into a kid.
Okay, just got dumb.
So Rex has him infiltrate Camp Candy to wreak havoc. First he wrecks the mess hall, and yet almost all the other campers still forgive him and take him in as their friend, which seems to be the first time anyone has ever really shown him love. Then he still goes ahead with his next act, tearing up half the camp with a rogue power saw that almost kills John in the process. And then they just cut to another scene where everyone's cool again, up until Rex shows up to confront Chester, and then the youth wears off, and that's the end. Even if we accept that the other kids were still so forgiving of Chester after everything he did, the scenes just look like they're out of order or something. And then there were even other episodes that show John as maybe a more reckless counselor than the show intended. Like the one that introduced the counselor of a rival camp named Counselor Nails. He starts off as this tough as, well, Nails drill sergeant, until he gets them trapped in a cave during a rainstorm because he turns out to be scared of thunder and lightning. And John has to show up to save everyone. I know that the kids were in danger because the flood waters were about to flood the cave itself, but are we sure there wasn't another way John could have gotten them to safety, like building a dam to keep the waters out, rather than sending everyone down a river of raging rapids? What type of indemnification waivers did the parents have to sign to get their kids into this camp? Aside from those, most of the episodes are just fluff pieces about trust and friendship and believing in yourself and all that goody-goody crap. The finale of the first season even had a Christmas in July story just so they could do a Christmas Carol knockoff. At least it made more sense than when Shirt Tales did it. Oh, and we also keep getting these cutaway gags involving the forest critters acting and talking like humans. Yeah, ripping off the great outdoors much? The show did get a 2-year run on NBC Saturday morning through 1991, and then a year later got revived with 13 new episodes for syndicated distribution through World Vision. Yeah, this thing got saved by the syndication market, but not a real TV treasure like Wildfire. This is why I say there is no justice. I wouldn't call this the second worst cartoon of even the 80s, as Mr. Enter claimed in his list. At least everything I covered last summer is worse than this. But it definitely is pretty forgettable. Forgettable to the point where, once again, there were a lot of episodes I could not find for this review, including many whose plots I still knew because I watched them back in the show's original NBC run. And given the likely legal issues with exactly who owns this show now, given how much both Deke and Saban's creations have been broken up and sold off over the years, we're probably even less likely to see a full re-release of this show than we are with Salute Your Shorts. Should you go on an internet treasure hunt to try and find the lost eps? I wouldn't waste my time. Stick to planes, trains, and automobiles, the great outdoors, and even Delirious if you want to see John Candy at his best. And you know what? We need to find something really fun to end the Summer Spectacular on. Something fun and crazy. Oh yes, people. Next month, may the Force be with us, because I know what we're gonna do today.